Okay, so you're listening because you want to build muscle, right? I mean, who doesn't? But
Yeah.
you also want to make sure you're doing it right.
You want to see results.
Exactly. No more spinning your wheels. You're done with the same old tired advice that gets you nowhere.
Yep.
So today we're taking a deep dive into Optimum Anabolics steroid-sized muscles through natural hormone programming.
Yeah, and this book really is a bit of a secret weapon. It's been around for a while, came out back in 2004, but honestly, it lays out a really solid plan for tapping into your body's natural ability to pack on muscle.
Yeah, it's not some new fad diet or workout. This is about understanding how your body works.
Exactly. It covers the whole 9 yards, from training to diet.
Yeah.
And the best part is it promises to help you bust through those supposed genetic limitations, like the ones you think you're stuck with.
All naturally.
All naturally, yeah.
No shortcuts, no magic pills, just science.
Right. And one of the things that really jumped out at me when I first read this book was the idea that you can actually work with your body's natural systems to trigger muscle growth.
Yeah, instead of just brute forcing it in the gym.
Exactly. It's a more strategic approach than the typical lift heavy, eat big advice you hear all the time.
Yeah.
And it really makes you rethink a lot of the stuff that's been floating around the bodybuilding world for years.
So it's not just about how much you can bench press, it's about how you can actually manipulate your body's response to build muscle more efficiently.
Exactly.
It's kind of like hacking your own biology.
Right. And the author really doesn't hold back in his critique of the more is better mindset that's so prevalent in the fitness industry. He even introduces this character, Joe Hardgainer, who represents a lot of the frustrations that guys experience when they try to build muscle.
Oh, yeah. I think we all know a Joe Hardgainer. Maybe we've even been Joe Hardgainer at some point in our lives.
Right.
This is the guy who's busting his butt in the gym, following all the advice he can find, but he's just not seeing the gains he wants. He hits a wall and then another wall, and it's just frustrating.
Exactly. And, he's probably following all the wrong advice, too. Reading those bodybuilding magazines, listening to the so-called gurus at the gym, ending up with a bunch of random exercises that aren't really doing much, overtraining, and wasting money on supplements that promise the world but deliver nothing.
And let's be honest, a lot of those impossible physiques you see in those magazines, they're not always achieved naturally.
The author is pretty upfront about that. He argues that a lot of those guys are using anabolic steroids, and that's the real secret behind their results. It's not some magic supplement or crazy workout routine.
The author's saying, don't compare yourself to these guys, they're playing a different game.
Exactly. And, all those pre-contest routines they talk about, spending hours and hours in the gym, for a natural lifter, that kind of volume would probably just lead to overtraining and burnout. It wouldn't be sustainable.
Right, you'd just be breaking your body down without giving it a chance to recover and grow.
Exactly. And then there's the whole supplement industry, which the author really takes to task.
Yeah.
He talks about this thing he calls the 6-month rule, where beginners get lured in by all the hype, spend a ton of money on these products, see some initial changes, maybe some water weight or a placebo effect, but then they hit a plateau after a few months and just get discouraged and quit.
And the cycle continues. Hope, hype, disappointment.
Exactly.
But here's where the book gets really interesting. Instead of just blindly pushing harder and harder, the author argues for working smarter. He says that by leveraging your body's natural defense mechanisms, you can actually program your muscles to grow beyond what you might think is possible naturally.
He calls these defense mechanisms the 8 anabolic factors, and they're really the foundation of his whole system.
So it's kind of like reverse engineering the way your body responds to stress to create an environment where muscle growth is optimized.
Exactly. And it's not just about lifting weights. It's about everything.
Yeah.
How you train, how you eat, how you rest. It's a holistic approach.
Okay, so let's break down these 8 anabolic factors. What are we talking about here?
All right, so the 8 factors are hyperadaptive cycling, body part training frequency, training session length, exercise selection and form, number of repetitions and weight, repetition speed, rest cycles, and then, of course, diet.
Whoa, that's a lot to unpack.
It is. But each of these factors plays a crucial role in the overall process.
So if you're not seeing the results you want, chances are you're overlooking or misunderstanding one or more of these key areas.
Absolutely. And the author really stresses that it's important to understand how all 8 of these factors work together before you even think about starting a program based on his recommendations.
So let's dive into the first factor, hyperadaptive cycling. What is that all about?
So hyperadaptation is basically your body's ability to overcompensate in response to a certain type of stress. It's kind of like your body's way of saying, okay, I've been through this before, so I'm going to be prepared next time.
So it's about pushing your body to adapt and then giving it a chance to recover and overcompensate.
Exactly. And the way the author applies this to muscle growth is through strategic cycles of training intensity.
Okay, so walk us through it. What does a hyperadaptive cycle look like?
It's a pretty simple concept, actually. You alternate between periods of high-intensity training where you're progressively overloading your muscles and periods of lower-intensity training where you're allowing them to recover and adapt.
So it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Exactly. But that one step back is crucial because it allows your body to overcompensate and build more muscle than it would have otherwise.
Makes sense. And how long are these cycles?
The book recommends doing 3-week cycles. So you do 3 weeks of progressive overload followed by 3 weeks of a hyperadaptive phase.
And the author also talks about protein deprivation cycling, right? That sounds a little intense.
It is. It is. It's definitely one of the more controversial aspects of the program.
What's the idea behind that?
The idea is that by temporarily depriving your body of protein, you can create a hormonal environment that's more conducive to muscle growth.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, when your body is low on protein, it starts to produce more anabolic hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF-1 in an attempt to preserve muscle mass.
So it's kind of like tricking your body into thinking it's in a state of starvation, which then triggers a survival mechanism to hold on to muscle tissue.
Exactly. And then when you reintroduce protein, your body is primed to absorb it and use it to build muscle.
I see. So it's kind of like a shock to the system that kicks it into overdrive.
Exactly. Now, the protein deprivation cycles are also done in 3-week blocks, and they're timed to coincide with the hyperadaptive training cycles.
So you're basically hitting your body with a double whammy, lower training intensity and lower protein intake.
Exactly. And according to the author, this combination creates the perfect environment for maximizing muscle growth.
Okay, that's factor 1. Let's move on to factor 2. Body part training frequency. How often should you be training each muscle group?
This is another area where the book goes against conventional wisdom. A lot of people think that if you want to grow a muscle, you need to train it multiple times per week.
Right, like hitting chest 3 times a week.
But the author argues that this is actually counterproductive.
Really?
Yeah, because when you train a muscle, you're actually breaking it down. And it takes time for that muscle to repair itself and grow back stronger.
Makes sense.
And if you train it again before it's fully recovered, you're just going to interrupt that process and prevent it from growing.
So you're basically just constantly breaking it down without giving it a chance to build back up.
Exactly. So the book recommends training each muscle group only once per week.
Okay, that makes sense. So what kind of workout split does he suggest?
He recommends a 5-day split. Shoulders on day 1, arms and abs on day 2, legs on day 3, back on day 4, and chest and abs again on day 5.
Interesting. So abs get hit twice a week.
They do. But the key here is that each major muscle group is only being trained directly once per week.
Got it. And then days 6 and 7 are rest days, or maybe some active recovery.
Exactly. He recommends taking those days off completely or doing some light cardio or mobility work.
Okay, that's a pretty standard split, but I'm guessing there's more to it than that, right?
There is. The author also emphasizes the importance of training session length. And this is another area where he challenges conventional wisdom.
Okay, let's talk about that. Factor 3, training session length.
A lot of bodybuilders, especially the ones using steroids, will spend hours in the gym.
Right, those marathon workouts.
Exactly. But the author argues that for natural lifters, this is just not effective.
Why not?
Because after about an hour of intense training, your testosterone levels start to drop significantly.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a pretty dramatic drop. And testosterone is the key muscle-building hormone. So if your levels are plummeting, your gains are going to suffer.
So those long workouts are actually working against you.
Exactly.
Okay, so how long should your workouts be?
The author recommends keeping them to 60 minutes or less. No exceptions.
Wow, that's pretty strict.
It is. But he's adamant about it. He even says that if you hit the 60-minute mark and you still have sets left to do, you should just leave the gym.
Seriously? Walk away?
Yep. He says those extra sets are probably doing more harm than good at that point.
That's a tough pill to swallow, especially for guys who are used to spending 2 hours in the gym.
I know, it's a big shift in mindset.
So how do you make sure you get enough work done in just 60 minutes?
The key is to be efficient. And one of the best ways to do that is to use supersets.
Supersets?
Yeah, that's where you do 2 exercises back to back with minimal rest in between.
All right.
This allows you to work more muscle groups in less time.
So you're not actually reducing the amount of work you're doing, you're just doing it more efficiently.
Exactly. And the book also recommends combining compound and isolation exercises in your supersets.
What does that mean?
A compound exercise is one that works multiple muscle groups at the same time, like a squat or a bench press. An isolation exercise is one that isolates a single muscle group, like a bicep curl or tricep extension.
Got it.
So for example, you could do a set of inclined dumbbell flies, which is an isolation exercise for your chest, followed immediately by a set of flat bench presses, which is a compound exercise that also works your chest, along with your shoulders and triceps.
That makes sense. So you're kind of pre-exhausting the target muscle group with the isolation exercise and then hitting it again with the compound exercise.
Exactly.
That sounds like a great way to maximize your time in the gym.
It is.
Okay, let's move on to factor 4, exercise selection and form.
Right.
There are so many different exercises out there, and it can be tough to know which ones are best for building muscle.
Yeah, it can definitely be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But the book provides a lot of guidance on this. And one of the first things the author talks about is the difference between free weights and machines.
Ah, the age-old debate.
Right. And, a lot of gyms push machines because they're safer and easier to use.
Right, it's harder to mess up your form on a machine.
Exactly. But the author argues that free weights are actually superior for building muscle.
Really? Why is that?
A few reasons. First, free weights force you to use more stabilizer muscles, which helps to build overall strength and stability.
So you're working more muscles overall.
Exactly. Second, free weights allow for a greater range of motion, which helps to stimulate more muscle fibers. And third, free weights elicit a stronger hormonal response.
Ah, that's key.
Yeah, when you lift heavy free weights, your body releases more testosterone and growth hormone, which are essential for muscle growth.
Okay, so free weights are the way to go.
For the most part, yeah. Now, the author also emphasizes the importance of using proper form.
Well, yeah, that's crucial.
He says that a lot of guys in the gym sacrifice form in order to lift heavier weights.
Ego lifting.
Exactly. But this is actually counterproductive because it reduces the amount of stress on the target muscle group and increases the risk of injury.
It's not about how much weight you can move. It's about how effectively you're working the target muscle.
Right. So the book provides a lot of detailed information on proper form for a wide range of exercises.
And it also talks about the importance of visualization, right?
Yes. The author recommends visualizing the target muscle working during each rep. This helps to strengthen the mind-muscle connection, which can lead to better results.
Okay, so it's not just about the physical movement, it's also about the mental focus.
Exactly.
And it talks about this 5-step pre-lift prep plan.
Right. That's a series of cues that help you get into the correct starting position for each exercise. It's all about setting your body up for success and minimizing the risk of injury.
So it's like a checklist you go through before each set.
Exactly. And then the book also includes tables of exercises for each muscle group with ratings based on their effectiveness for building mass.
Oh, that's helpful. So you can see at a glance which exercises are the most bang for your buck.
Right. And it also provides detailed form notes for each exercise.
Oh, so you know exactly how to do each one correctly?
Exactly.
That's really comprehensive. Now, what about cardio? A lot of bodybuilders are afraid of cardio because they think it'll eat away at their gains. What does the book say about that?
The author actually recommends doing some cardio, but it has to be the right kind. He's not a fan of long, slow cardio, like jogging for an hour on the treadmill.
Yeah, that doesn't really scream muscle growth.
Right. But he does recommend high-intensity interval training, or HIIT.
What's the difference?
HIIT involves short bursts of very intense exercise, followed by brief recovery periods. So you might sprint for 30 seconds, then walk for a minute, and repeat that for 15-20 minutes.
Ah, okay. So it's more about short bursts of all-out effort.
Exactly.
Mm.
And this type of cardio is actually beneficial for muscle growth because it helps to increase your metabolism and burn fat without interfering with your recovery.
So it's a good way to stay lean while you're bulking.
Exactly.
Okay, moving on. Factor 5, number of sets and repetitions.
Okay, so this is all about finding the sweet spot for muscle growth. The author recommends doing sets of 8-15 repetitions.
Why that range specifically?
Because that's the range that creates the most metabolic stress, which is a key trigger for muscle growth. When you lift weights in that rep range, you're creating a lot of lactic acid buildup in the muscles. And that signals to your body to build more muscle tissue.
Got it. And how does that tie in with the hyperadaptive cycling program?
During the progressive overload phase, you're gradually increasing the number of sets per exercise each week. So you might start with 2 sets per exercise in week 1, then 3 sets in week 2, and 4 sets in week 3.
And you're always aiming for failure within that 8-15 rep range.
Exactly. You want to push yourself to the point where you can't do another rep with good form.
No cheating.
Nope. And then during the hyperadaptive phase, you decrease the number of sets and reps, and you don't go to failure.
So it's all about giving your body a chance to recover and adapt.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about factor 6, repetition speed. I don't think a lot of people pay much attention to this.
I think you're right, but it's actually really important. The author recommends using a specific lifting and lowering tempo for each rep.
Really? What's the ideal tempo?
He recommends lifting the weight explosively in about 1 to 2 seconds, and then lowering it slowly and controlled in about 4 seconds.
So it's almost like a fast up, slow down kind of thing.
Exactly. And the reason for this is that it helps to target both fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers.
Remind me, what's the difference between those?
Fast twitch fibers are responsible for explosive movements, like sprinting or jumping. Slow twitch fibers are responsible for endurance activities, like long-distance running.
Okay, right.
And you need to stimulate both types of fibers in order to maximize muscle growth.
Makes sense. So the explosive lifting phase targets the fast twitch fibers, and the slow lowering phase targets the slow twitch fibers.
Exactly.
Okay, that's factor 6. What about factor 7? Rest cycles.
Okay, so this one is all about recovery. And the author emphasizes that muscle growth actually happens when you're resting, not when you're working out.
Right, you're breaking down muscle in the gym, but you're building it back up during recovery.
Exactly. And he talked about 2 main types of rest. Rest between sets during your workout and sleep.
Let's start with rest between sets. How long should you be resting?
Depends on the phase of the program you're in. During the progressive overload phase, you want to keep your rest periods relatively short, maybe 60-90 seconds.
So you're keeping the intensity high.
Exactly. And then during the hyperadaptive phase, you want to increase your rest periods to 2-3 minutes.
So again, you're giving your body a chance to recover more fully.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about sleep.
Everyone's favorite topic.
Right. The author calls sleep the anabolic window of opportunity.
Because that's when your body is doing the most repairing and rebuilding.
Exactly. And he recommends getting 7-8 hours of quality sleep every night.
Easier said than done for some people.
I know, it could be tough. But it's crucial for muscle growth.
Any tips for getting a better night's sleep?
Yeah, a few. Try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on weekends. Create a relaxing bedtime routine. Make sure your bedroom is dark, quiet, and cool. And avoid caffeine and alcohol before bed.
Good advice.
He also recommends avoiding large meals before bed.
So no late night snacking.
Right.
Okay, that's rest and recovery. Finally, let's talk about the most important factor of all. Factor 8, diet.
Okay, here we go. Diet is the foundation of everything.
Absolutely. You can't out-train a bad diet.
Right. And the author has some very specific recommendations for what you should be eating to maximize muscle growth.
Lay it on us.
Okay, first of all, he emphasizes the importance of eating enough protein.
No surprise there.
Right. But he actually recommends a pretty high protein intake. He says you should be aiming for about 1.14 grams of protein per pound of lean body weight per day.
Wow, that's a lot of protein.
It is. But it's necessary for building and repairing muscle tissue.
Okay, what are the best sources of protein?
He recommends lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy, and protein powders.
What about plant-based protein sources?
He mentions those too, things like beans, lentils, and tofu.
Okay.
But he does emphasize the importance of getting complete proteins, which contain all the essential amino acids. And most plant-based proteins are incomplete, so you need to combine them in certain ways to get all the amino acids you need.
Got it. So what about carbs?
Carbs are important for providing energy, and they also play a role in muscle growth. The author recommends getting most of your carbs from low glycemic sources.
Low glycemic.
Yeah, that means they're digested slowly and don't cause a rapid spike in blood sugar.
Okay. So what are some examples of low glycemic carbs?
Things like brown rice, quinoa, oats, sweet potatoes, and fruits and vegetables.
Okay, so basically the good carbs.
Right. Now, there is one exception to this rule. He recommends having a high glycemic carb meal immediately after your workout.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Because after your workout, your muscles are depleted of glycogen, which is their stored form of energy. And high glycemic carbs help to replenish those glycogen stores quickly.
Makes sense.
He recommends having about 100 grams of high glycemic carbs post-workout.
Okay. And what about fats?
Fats are also essential for muscle growth, but you want to make sure you're getting the right kinds of fats.
Right, the good fats.
Exactly. He recommends getting most of your fats from monounsaturated and polyunsaturated sources.
Give us some examples.
Monounsaturated fats are found in things like olive oil, avocados, nuts, and seeds. Polyunsaturated fats are found in things like fatty fish, flaxseed oil, and walnuts.
Okay, so the heart-healthy fats.
Exactly. And he recommends having about 30 grams of these good fats immediately after your workout as well,
Oh, interesting. Why post-workout?
because it helps to boost testosterone levels.
Ah, there's that hormone again.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, here's where things get a little more complicated. The author also provides detailed formulas for calculating your personalized macronutrient needs.
So it's not just a one-size-fits-all approach?
Nope. He takes into account your body weight, body fat percentage, and metabolic rate. And he provides a step-by-step guide on how to calculate your individual needs.
Okay, that's pretty in-depth.
It is. And he also walks you through how to adjust your macros during the protein deprivation cycles.
Which, let's be honest, sounds pretty tough.
It can be, but the author provides some tips on how to make it easier.
Like what?
Well, he recommends focusing on foods that are high in volume, but low in protein.
So things like fruits and vegetables.
Exactly. And he also recommends tracking your food intake to make sure you're staying within your macros.
Good old food journaling.
Right. And then he has this interesting concept of a cheat day.
Cheat day. But isn't this whole program about being super strict with your diet?
It is. But he allows for one cheat day per week where you can eat whatever you want.
Really? That's pretty generous.
Yeah, he says it helps to keep you sane and prevent you from feeling deprived.
That's probably a good idea.
But he does emphasize that you still need to stay within your protein limit on your cheat day, even if it's just 30 grams during a protein deprivation cycle. And he also says that this is the only day you're allowed to drink alcohol.
Because alcohol can interfere with muscle growth.
Exactly. And then, of course, he talks about the importance of staying hydrated.
Water, water, water.
Exactly. He recommends drinking a gallon of water per day.
That's a lot of water.
It is, but it's crucial for muscle growth and overall health.
Okay, and last but not least, supplements.
Right, so the author is not a big fan of supplements. He believes that you can get everything you need from food.
He's all about keeping it natural.
Exactly. But he does recommend a few supplements that can be helpful.
Such as?
Creatine.
Okay, that's a popular one.
Right. It helps to increase strength and power. He also recommends acetylcarnitine, which can help to boost testosterone and block cortisol.
Okay, any others?
He mentions protein powders, which could be helpful for hitting your protein goals,
Makes sense.
and liquid amino acid concentrate, which can be helpful for post-workout recovery. He also recommends a multivitamin mineral antioxidant supplement to make sure you're getting all the micronutrients you need.
And L-glutamine, which helps to prevent muscle breakdown.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's a pretty short list of supplements.
It is. He's really all about focusing on the basics: training, diet, and rest.
And those are the 8 anabolic factors.
Yep. This is the system in a nutshell.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive into Optimum Anabolics. I have to say, this book really challenges a lot of the conventional wisdom about building muscle.
I agree. It's definitely a different approach than what you typically hear.
But it makes a lot of sense, and it's backed by science.
Right.
It's all about working with your body's natural systems to maximize muscle growth.
Exactly.
And it's amazing to think that your body has this built-in capacity for growth and adaptation. You just need to know how to tap into it.
That's what this book is all about.
And it makes you wonder, if your body can adapt in such amazing ways when it comes to muscle growth, what other areas of your life could you apply these principles to? Could you use similar strategies to improve your sleep, your productivity, your overall well-being?
That's a great question. I think the possibilities are endless.
Well, we'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Optimum Anabolics. And if you're interested in learning more about this program, we highly recommend checking out the book itself. There's a ton of information in there that we didn't have time to cover today, including detailed workout plans, recipes, and supplement recommendations.
Yeah, it's a really comprehensive resource for anyone who's serious about building muscle naturally.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep pushing your limits.
And keep it natural.
Always.
Always.